Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to EPA. It's so good to see all of you. It's a really exciting day here today. It is a WOTUS day. Many of you have been around WOTUS for many years, and we hope with our proposed announcement and ultimately final rulemaking, perhaps we can stop the pendulum swing that's been going on for far too long. I want to give a heartfelt thanks to everyone for taking time out of their day to join us today. And I want to recognize the great work of our career staff in the Office of Water, many of whom are sitting over there. We wouldn't be here talking about this proposed rulemaking today without them. I also want to take a second to just say that this proposed rulemaking means a lot to me personally. I grew up in rural Wisconsin on a Christmas tree farm, and there is a tremendous amount of water in various forms that flows over the property that my parents, who are here today, live on. As we spoke about this, the administrator and I, we talked about things like legally defensible, durable. We talked about a common sense approach to this rulemaking. And we think with this proposal, we have struck that balance today. The agencies developed this proposed rule because the 2023 definition of WOTUS, even after being amended, failed to fully implement the Supreme Court's direction in Sackett. It also shut out public comment and ignored concerns from farmers, small businesses, and landowners. Uncertainty created by the 2023 rule is driving up the cost of doing business in this country and pinching the pocketbooks of Americans. At its core, this proposed rule intends to achieve three objectives, and I will just give you a very brief highlight. First, it would fully implement the direction provided by the Supreme Court's 2023 Sackett decision. Our second objective is to cut red tape to reduce the cost of doing business and reduce the cost of living for Americans all over this country. Finally, the proposal would protect water quality by striking a balance between the federal and state authorities as predicated by the Clean Water Act. The proposal recognizes that states and tribes know their land and water resources best and are best positioned to manage them. With that short summary, I will introduce EPA's Administrator Zeldin.
Now, last week, I finished up traveling to all 50 states since February. There's no topic that came up more during my travels than the need for a revised definition of waters of the United States. Nothing came up more than it. And I know that across the country, news of today's proposal is going to be met with a lot of relief and happiness from farmers, ranchers, other landowners, governments that have been looking for a simple, prescriptive definition that the whole country can operate off of and would allow individuals to know whether or not there's a water of the United States without having to go hire an attorney or a consultant, having to pay someone to tell them. I want to echo Jessica Kramer's praise for the career staff inside the Office of Water here at EPA. The proposal that they put together, which was some great light reading for me this past weekend as a reminder. And I've had a constant reminder of the exceptional career staff that work here at the headquarters and across the entire country. But as I was reading this proposed rule, you could just tell how very thoughtful, exceptional, and dedicated this staff was in putting together this proposal. And I want to echo Jessica's thank you to EPA's Office of Water for all of their work. I want to thank all of the dignitaries who are here who will be speaking following our remarks here to open things up. And they know well. They've heard it from their constituents, and they've advocated hard on behalf of their constituents. They heard their calls, and we certainly often, I would say maybe on a daily basis, I heard those leaders advocating on behalf of their people to make sure that we got this done. This was a topic that often came up during meetings and conversations with the president directly. I mean, I came out of the DoD world, and even after 22 years serving in the military, I don't know, maybe I ended up learning about 8% of all the acronyms. If you're going to come work at EPA, you will be challenged to catch up on what is also a very long list of acronyms, but it's quite possible that there's no acronym that is more often spoken about across this country. Maybe there may not be an acronym that is more important than WOTUS. And what it means and how it's defined is quite important. Today you'll hear from the U.S. Army Corps, Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Adam Tell. The Army Corps has been instrumental in putting together this proposed rulemaking. We have West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey, who's here. I was just with Governor Morrisey in West Virginia last week. Good to see you again. We have a lot of leaders from Congress. Congressman Gary Palmer from Alabama, who's the chairman of the ENC Environment Subcommittee. Mike Simpson from Idaho, chairman of the Appropriations, Interior, and Environment Subcommittee. Congressman Bruce Westerman from Arkansas, chair of the Natural Resources Committee. Congressman Brian Mass, who's now chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. You have Congressman Randy Weber here, Congressman Mark Messmer here, and Congressman Jim Baird from Texas and Indiana, respectively. And I want to thank all these members of Congress for taking the time and being here. We also have West Virginia Attorney General J.B. McCuskey. I believe Congressman Dave Taylor of Ohio may be here as well. Congressman Taylor, good to see you. Again, what we're looking for post-Sackett is a clear, simple, prescriptive rule that will withstand the test of time. My goal, right from the onset, was to come up with a definition that no matter what would happen in November of 28 or November of 2032, that you're going to keep this definition. This wasn't about taking a pendulum and swinging it as far as you can up against another edge. It's about getting it right. And I think that our farmers, our ranchers, our landowners in these states absolutely deserve it. Our proposal includes practical, common sense revisions that will make a real difference. We're defining key terms like, quote, relatively permanent, continuous surface connection, and tributary to appropriately limit the scope of what is consistent with Sackett. We're establishing that jurisdictional tributaries must connect to traditional navigable waters, either directly or through other features that provide predictable and consistent flow. We're adding a new exclusion for groundwater and revising exclusions for certain ditches, prior converted cropland, and waste treatment systems. We're incorporating locally familiar terminology such as wet season to help determine whether a water body qualifies as WOTUS. And we're strengthening state and tribal decision-making authority by providing clear regulatory guidelines while recognizing their expertise in local land and water resources. We developed the proposed rule using input from multiple sources, including a pre-proposal recommendations docket, information from 9 public listening sessions, and consultation comments from states, tribes, and local governments. We listened and we acted. I also want to recognize David Fatui, who's here, the EPA Deputy Administrator, and all the other members of our team here at the agency who have poured a lot of their time and energy into getting this right. And lastly, I know that this room is filled up with a lot of individuals representing different groups, different regions, different states from all across America. You're here because this is more than just some acronym, WOTUS. This isn't just another day. It wasn't that you didn't have anything else to do. I'm pretty confident that this room is filled up with people who find this topic to be extraordinarily important, appreciating what it is that we're here to propose today. And on behalf of the EPA, we thank all of you for taking the time. As we embark on this 45-day comment period that is about to begin, we will encourage the public to participate in the public comment period. We will remind everybody that this is a proposal. I'm not allowed to prejudge outcomes of this rulemaking. I will not prejudge it. I am required to put out a proposal, and that's what we are putting out jointly with the Army Corps today. But for anyone who reads it and you see a lot that you like, please participate in the public comment period and let us know. If you see something that you want us to improve, great, provide a public comment. We look forward to reading it, and we want to get it right. We have an amazing team ready to review all of your public comments. We certainly encourage them to be unique and substantive, and I would also say it's helpful when you're not just relying on somebody else to speak for you. You know, sometimes an organization will provide feedback on a public comment, and they're speaking on behalf of maybe a nationwide organization, but the individual members with their own unique experiences of how it might be impacting you in North Dakota or in Southwest U.S. or permafrost in Alaska. Getting that unique, substantive, technical feedback is something that we will be relying on. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Assistant Secretary of the Army Corps of Engineers, Adam Tell, and I want to thank him and the Army Corps for all of their great partnership throughout this process. Assistant Secretary Tell.
Thank you, Administrator Zeldin, and I would just say we're so fortunate to have such a skilled Army veteran at the head of the EPA, and this is really a feature of the Trump administration, which is we work together with Administrator Zeldin and his team literally every day in the interagency, and couldn't be happier with the partnership that we have with Administrator Zeldin and the EPA. Since 1972, Americans have struggled to understand what Congress meant when it included the term waters of the United States in the Clean Water Act. Did it apply to them? Did it not? The definition of that term has been often abused, sometimes stretched beyond recognition over time, and it's left Americans uncertain about whether they were complying with the Clean Water Act or not. In the best cases, as Administrator Zeldin pointed out, American landowners have been forced to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to hire someone to interpret the law for them. Today, under President Trump's leadership, the EPA and Army Civil Works, which oversees the Corps of Engineers, are kicking off the formal process that will give Americans certainty about their property once and for all. President Trump, Administrator Zeldin, Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and I are committed to ending the last 5 decades of confusing and ever-changing definitions of the term waters of the United States. President Trump understands that we are in a competition during the 21st century that will define whether or not the United States of America remains the greatest nation in the history of the world. Today marks a major step in President Trump's agenda to unleash our economy and remain competitive during the 21st century by significantly reducing the federal regulatory burden on Americans. In 2023, the Supreme Court made a decision in the Sackett case that gave unprecedented clarity about what actually comprises a water of the United States. The Sackett decision is the law of the land, and Administrator Zeldin and I intend to follow the law vigorously. Today's action will allow us to hear directly from the American people on our proposal. After receiving and appropriately incorporating that input, Administrator Zeldin and I will move quickly to finalize the rule. As he did, I would like to recognize Lee Forsgren, my principal deputy, who had a strong hand to play here in the daily cooperation with the EPA to get this done. He's an alumnus of the EPA from the first Trump administration and has brought a great deal of technical expertise to this process. Army Civil Works and the Corps of Engineers have a special role to play here as we are charged with a significant portion of the implementation of the final rule. And we are hard at work now so that, once the rule is final, our entire enterprise will be poised to move out and ensure that it is consistently and appropriately implemented across our great nation. With that, I would like to introduce the governor of the great state of West Virginia, Governor Patrick Morrisey, who I was fortunate enough to share a stage with in my first visit in this role when we were out in Milton, West Virginia. Governor Morrisey.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam, and thank you, Mr. Administrator, not only for your rule today, but for listening to the people of West Virginia last week. And we were very glad to welcome you to our state, because if there's a state in America that had felt the hurt from what the Biden administration had done with its EPA, it was West Virginia. So what a wonderful turnaround, and I feel the warmth in this building in a way I didn't feel it many years ago. So it's great to be here and take another important step to restore balance and common sense to the federal environmental policy. I know that as the West Virginia Attorney General, we led most of the major Waters of the United States rule litigation for a long period of time. Back in 2015, when we had 31 states, it was actually a bipartisan initiative to stop what the Obama administration was doing. And then obviously as the lead amicus in Sackett, and then we had led the way with respect to all the efforts in the Eighth Circuit to stop WOTUS from moving forward for large parts of the country. So today is a wonderful day, and I'm glad to see my successor here, J.B. McCuskey, who's doing good work out of West Virginia. Thank you, J.B., for your efforts. You know, for too long, there's been a great deal of uncertainty about this term, Waters of the United States rule. Unfortunately, it left many people holding the bag. Farmers, contractors, small business owners, guessing whether their ephemeral stream or a backyard ditch was going to be classified as a Waters of the United States rule and potentially subject them to significant penalties, potentially up to $37,500 a day. It was a huge, huge problem. I'm really happy to be here today to announce that because of the good decision that came out of the Supreme Court and the wonderful work of the EPA, that uncertainty ends now. I know that there's been a decades-long effort to put new standards in place, and there was aggressiveness from these unelected bureaucrats defining these terms, trying to read terms like significant nexus into the statute. Last time I checked, it wasn't in the statute. That's how these decisions got made. They were terrible. It was textbook example of federal overreach. And West Virginia and across the country, we were all animated by what the Obama administration, then the Biden administration tried to do. Fortunately, the Sackett decision, a lot of the other work that we were involved in, made the right call. And with this rule, the strengthening of the rule, I think you're right. There's going to be that continuity for years into the future. I'm hopeful that whatever happens with the body politic over the next 10 years, that this could be a durable rule because it's common sense. And I know West Virginia will be weighing in to be supportive of this rule. So we appreciate it. I think this is a win for both environmental stewardship and economic growth. You can achieve both. We know that when you're looking at state lands and waters, that's traditionally in the purview of state government. I can tell everyone today, we care very passionately about clean air and clean water in West Virginia, and we want to be good stewards of the lands and the waters. I think this rule is going to allow us to do that and to step forward. And unlike the Biden administration's direct to final rule, where they just ignored public comment, this administration's engaging with states and localities, industry and consumers all across the board, every step of the way. That is what cooperative federalism looks like in practice and what we've all been working for a long time. So it's my pleasure to be here today because it's the culmination of years of legal, scientific, and regulatory work to get WOTUS right and to reaffirm that West Virginia and all the states' voices matter in shaping federal policy. So I thank you. I look forward to continuing to work with you on these issues and many other issues. Let me tell you, you've got a wonderful administrator of the EPA. I know the Army Corps is doing some terrific work, and it's going to make a big difference for our country. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here, and God bless. Now it's my pleasure to introduce someone who's in a great committee, one where I had the pleasure of serving as the Deputy Staff Director many years ago, Congressman Gary Palmer, Chairman of the E&C Environment Subcommittee. Gary Palmer, thanks for coming up.
Thank you, Governor Morrissey. I am so happy to be here today to be with Administrator Zeldin. In the last 10 months, Administrator Zeldin has shown us, if anything, he is the right man for the job. Since day one, he has been committed to mitigating waste, fraud, and abuse at the EPA, and now he is working on bringing common sense to the rulemaking process. Today's announcement about the waters of the U.S. is no different. I'm confident that the rule will prioritize clean water while protecting farmers, ranchers, landowners, and businesses alike. Americans deserve clean water as well as clarity and predictability from the federal government by putting forth sensible rules and regulations based on sound science and sound economics. As Governor Morsi was talking about what's going on in the last few years, I was thinking about the rancher out in Wyoming, Mr. Johnson, who was sued by the EPA and threatened with millions of dollars of fines. Fortunately, he took him to court and was successful. I think bringing clarity to the rulemaking process in regard to the waters of the U.S. will stop a lot of things that were honestly abusive of people. But not only that, Administrator Zeldin, I think this is a great first step toward making life a little more affordable for Americans, families all across the country, not the least of which will be their groceries. And it's going to bring better alignment with state agencies as well, and bring that certainty that people need when it comes to making investments, and that's especially true of our farmers. So I'm very happy to be here today. I'm very proud of the work that you and your team are doing, Administrator Zeldin. For that, it's my pleasure to introduce Congressman Mike Simpson, who chairs the Appropriations Subcommittee on Interior, Environment, and Related Agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much, Gary. I know there's going to be several people talk today, and I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to thank Administrator Zeldin and the Assistant Secretary for their work on this rule. And I also want to add my thanks to the staff of the Water Division of the EPA for their work on this. This has been something that's been going on for a long time, and I will just throw this out for the Sackett decision actually came out of Idaho. I'm just saying. It was in Priest Lake, Idaho, where my family goes and vacations every year, but that was an important decision. And it's something that, as chairman of the Interior Appropriations Committee and former chairman of the Energy and Water Appropriations Committee that does the Army Corps of Engineers, I've always added language into the appropriation bill to make sure that we've defunded the enforcement of the WOTUS rule that had been written and rewritten and rewritten. And as you know, the Supreme Court has told us a couple times, we need to make sense of this rule. You need to do something. We don't understand what navigable waters is. Navigable to what? It's always been a challenge. So I've always added language to that and saying we need to rewrite this rule, or the EPA and the Army Corps need to rewrite this rule so that we bring certainty and predictability to those ranchers and farmers and businesses and state governments. It was not because we didn't want clean water or clean air. We want that just as much as everybody else does, but we need some certainty in this rule. That's why I always added that language. But we always had this debate in the committee. Someone would always try to strike that language, and they would pretend that we were against clean water. And their assumption was if the EPA and the federal government did not regulate the waters of the United States, that being every drop of water that is in the United States, that it was unregulated. That's not true. If it's not regulated by the EPA, that just means the states regulate them. And I will tell you that nobody cares more about having clean water in the state of Idaho than the state of Idaho does and the citizens of Idaho. Same with West Virginia. We can leave those waters to be regulated by the states. That's why we're doing this. This is why we need this clear definition of what's going on. And I thank the administration for taking up this controversial, I guess, issue that hasn't been solved in a number of years that really needs to be solved. So it's my honor now to introduce the chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Westerman.
Thank you, Mike, Administrator Zeldin, and Assistant Secretary Till. It's an honor to be here with you today and with Governor Morrissey and with my colleagues from Congress to talk about something that we've been talking about a long, long time, and that's the waters of the U.S. I know when we came in as freshmen in Congress in 2015, this was a hot topic then. It's still a hot topic today, and hopefully we're finally getting around to addressing it in the way that it needs to be addressed. You know, President Reagan, I think, said it best when he talked about overregulation. He said, if it moves, tax it. If it continues to move, regulate it. And when it stops moving, subsidize it. That's what happens when you lose your common sense. And we've lost our common sense in the regulatory world. Because we've lost our common sense, we can no longer be as good a stewards of our environment as we should be. Some people think that these rules actually help the environment, but when you look at how it plays out in the real world, it hurts the environment. And Governor, we can have a strong economy and a healthy, safe environment at the same time, but we've got to get our regulatory structure in line, and that's what this proposed rule, I believe, will do. When we lose our common sense, we lose our ability to make good, sound judgments. We're losing our ability to build things here in America now, which will mean that we will lose our ability to grow, and we eventually will be incapable of competing on the global stage. We have to get our regulatory house in order. Administrator Zeldin, you said there may be no bigger acronym than WOTUS, but I can think of one more, and it's NEPA. And the Supreme Court has also made a ruling in the 7 counties decision on NEPA, and as members of Congress, we need to codify that ruling, and we hope to do that with something called the SPEED Act that I hope to have a hearing or a markup on this week. It's regulatory reform. NEPA is not supposed to dictate outcomes, as the Supreme Court said. It's supposed to be a process to analyze the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, the Endangered Species Act, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, the Historic Preservation Act, and the list goes on and on and on. But if you have a broken process, you're never going to get these things analyzed. So, Administrator, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for tackling this tough issue, and I look forward to working with you as not only as chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, but also as a member of the T&I Committee. And I've got a fellow T&I Committee member here who I'll introduce next, the gentleman from Florida, who's not only a member of the T&I Committee, but the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Brian Mast.
Lasagna, I'll save us all a lot of time from speaking down here. Thank you, Chairman Westerman. Thank you, Administrator. We've sat on many a dais together, so I'm so proud to see you as head of the EPA. It just does my heart good. I know you're going to do an incredible job as we continue through these 4 years. And Assistant Secretary, it's been a pleasure to work with you already, and I look forward to continuing our work together. I just want to thank you for your approach to the EPA. I think you're blending two things incredibly well. Just number one, to make sure that the world recognizes power does not rest with the federal government. It has to go back to the states. It has to go back to municipalities. Not the federal government controls everybody. And you're blending that with something that I know goes to your core, goes to your heart, and that's that we never allow anything into our waters that we wouldn't put into the bathtub with some of our children. And I have no doubt that you're going to do an incredible job reaching that balance as we work through this rulemaking process, as we work through everything else, NEPA or anything else. I believe in you to do it. And thank you to both of you as a part of this team. Really appreciate the work you're doing.
Well, I'm privileged to be here with Administrator Zeldin. He came in one term after I did, Bruce. He's a friendly guy. We very quickly became friends, and having him as a friend gives me status. I had a friend in the 5th grade once that gave me the measles, and this is a lot better deal, just so you all know. So listen, Jess Kramer was here earlier. I think she was here somewhere. Here she is. She said she grew up on a farm, a Christmas tree farm. Do I remember that correctly, Jess? My granddad and my dad grew up on a farm in Houston, Texas. They raised cows and horses, pigs and chickens and stuff like that. I was born in 1953, for those of you who think I look a lot older than that. But anyway, my grandfather had to go and dig a pond. He got a bulldozer and he got an excavator, and he dug a pond out. They had a small farm. I tell people it was so small, Gary, that it took 3 acres just to rust one nail. That was a small farm. But it was a small farm. They took an excavator and the bulldozer, and they dug that pond out. And they actually had the cows could come into that pond, and they put catfish in it. I cannot imagine a government official showing up at that 20-acre farm just south of Houston and telling them that they could not do that. It's unbelievable what's going on. Thank you all for all your hard work. Thank everybody here for being here and making sure that this gets out and about and make sure that we take care of this. It's been a need for a long time. And I'm going to stop there and introduce Congressman Mesmer. Did I see him? Right here. Here he is. Come on up, Congressman. You bet.
Thank you, Congressman Weber, and good afternoon. Thank you for Administrator Zeldin for extending the invitation to be here today, and thank you for coming to Indiana this summer. I was glad to have you there as well. The lack of clarity around the waters of the U.S. has plagued American homeowners, farmers, and developers for decades. Instead of working to improve the quality of our lakes, rivers, and wetlands, the failed regulatory language has hamstrung backyards across America in regulatory confusion. Under WOTUS obscurity, Hoosier farmers working their lands and families renovating their homes have been served court fines and court dates their actions never warranted. Conservationists, producers, and residents across Indiana's 8th District are experts in managing their local resources. These local leaders, especially in our beautiful state of Indiana, know how to protect our environment best. And working for several years in the Indiana legislature on the state-regulated portions of WOTUS, I know how desperately in need of reform this rule is. Today's announcement concludes an era marked by overregulation and deference to faceless bureaucrats in Washington. I applaud Administrator Zeldin and the Trump administration for their efforts to gather commentary from stakeholders across the nation, including our Hoosier leaders. This is precisely how federal regulations are supposed to be developed. By leveraging time-tried experts of those impacted by WOTUS failures, EPA has reached a robust definition and a just framework that finally offers landowners the clarity they deserve. I look forward to continued partnership with President Trump and Administrator Zeldin as we roll out policies that reflect the insight of the American people and reform regulations that have handcuffed our communities for far too long. Thank you. God bless Indiana and God bless America. And now I would like to call Congressman Jim Baird from Indiana to the podium.
You know, I don't think there's much I can add to what's already been said, except that I want to say for the farmers and ranchers, they were the original conservationists, and you can't believe the kind of consternation and frustration that the waters of the United States caused back a few years ago. So, Representative Zeldin, it's great to be with you. I really appreciate the common sense approach you have to the rules and the administration that you're working with. And the other thing that's very important, I think, is to recognize the impact that the waters of the United States, as well as other issues, have on agriculture. And you know, farming is kind of upside down right now in the Midwest where I'm from, and we're just finishing up the harvest. And so to have other things like waters of the U.S. impact our industry is not good. So we thank you for what you're doing. We thank you for all the other activities that have taken place under your jurisdiction. So with that, I will introduce Jess Kramer from the Office of Water.
All right, I just want to say one more thank you to everybody for joining us today. One more thank you to our staff in the Office of Water and also in the Army Corps who are critical in getting this proposal done. And then I would like to invite our dignitaries to join us on stage for signing, as well as our staff from the Office of Water.
All credentialed media, if you go up to the foyer, we're going to have a media availability with Ms.